Hi, welcome everyone to Web3 on Fire. Today we have Jesse and Willy from Nounspace, as well as ATX DAO. We're going to be talking everything Nounspace, which is a Farcaster client, noun focused, everything. Just super excited to talk about that as the app and client, as well as get into some background. So welcome both of you to the pod.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Rob. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. So before we get into everything nounish, as we have some noggles here, I see Willy's got his whole poster and cutout going there. That's awesome.
It's Nounspace Tom, also attending the podcast.
There we go. Nice. So yeah, let's maybe kick it off to Jesse. Maybe get a little bit about your background in tech and then how got into crypto and maybe the project that built you. Talk about ATX DAO and then Nounspace as well. So kick it to you, Jesse. Thanks.
Yeah, sure. So I got into crypto back in 2017. I was part of the initial cohort for the blockchain at Berkeley Club. And we did some work with Tendermint and Cosmos around that time. And then I worked in VR for a little bit. And when I got to Austin, I still wanted to nurse those crypto roots, keep an eye on things. I've loved kind of decentralized projects, applications, systems. So it's always been on my mind. And I got together with some folks and we created ATX DAO, which is the Austin City DAO. Basically a space for folks to get together from the Web3 industry and talk about what they're working on, what they're excited about in general. Leave some of our family and friends from hearing us talk about crypto nonstop, and find some folks that share our enthusiasm and excitement for it. And yeah, that led me to Willy and to Farcaster and to Nouns and to the current Nounspace project.
Awesome. Yeah, that was perfect. Shout out ATX DAO. What a wonderful organization here in Austin. Have thrown some of the most amazing events at South by, at Consensus, at outside of that as well. So just a great community.
Plus one.
All right.
Happy to be an ATX DAO member as well. I wouldn't have met Jesse otherwise. I'm also a local Austinite, but I first got into tech when I was a college student at CU Boulder. So I started a Web2 startup called Just Legal. It was a legal tech SaaS-enabled marketplace where you could find lawyers and book free initial consultations. So although I had heard about crypto, we actually had a Bitcoin ATM in our co-working space back in Boulder that I would walk past every single day. I didn't buy any crypto till beginning of 2017 because I finally had some money to invest. I had actually moved back to Austin for an accelerator program and sold my house in Colorado. So I bought some Ethereum at the beginning of 2017. And by the end of 2017, I was totally hooked. So we sold that legal tech startup in December. And then that same month, I started a project called Bitfract with some of my great friends who are actually also helping out with Nounspace. And that was an amazing journey. 6 months later, we got acquired by Shapeshift. And so I'm still working for Shapeshift. It's actually like in 3 days, it'll be our 6-year anniversary of Shapeshift's acquisition. So I still work there on the foundation side. So Shapeshift became a DAO in 2021. And I've been head of decentralization at the Fox Foundation, which supports Shapeshift DAO since then, but I went part-time in January. So Jesse and I built trash NFTs with a couple other ATX DAO friends in February. That was an awesome experience. And as you can see, we had some free time. And so it was actually in March at the ATX DAO party at South by Southwest that the idea for Nounspace was born. Huge shout out to Nouns as well, one of my other favorite DAOs, for inspiring the idea. You mentioned that we're Nouns focused. I wouldn't consider us Nouns focused necessarily, but we're definitely Nouns funded and Nouns inspired and very nounish ourselves. Obviously, as you can tell, this is our CEO, Nounspace Tom. And his background, he just got into tech 2.5 weeks ago, basically, as the CEO of Nounspace. It's his first thing that he's ever built, but he's just got all the right values. He's super handsome. He's a great leader. Yeah, very, very happy to have him as our CEO.
He's not a big talker in person, but he's very prolific online.
Like many of interns and CEOs in general.
Totally. like the
Nice.
best.
Well, that was a great kind of segue into Nounspace as a whole. So let's just go ahead and get into what is the idea for Nounspace. You mentioned at the party at South by was the idea's inception. So maybe we can kind of like rewind back to that day. What was the inspiration? How did Nouns play into that? And then maybe also like what was so exciting about Nouns and the community in the space there as well.
Yeah, I'll talk about kind of how the idea started, and then I'll hand it to Jesse to talk about how it's evolved and how cool it is now, because it's definitely evolved quite a bit. So the initial idea was basically inspired by the fact that Nouns had a grant competition where they basically passed proposals to fund 3 teams with $100,000 each for a 3-month sprint to build a Nounish Farcaster client. So we're hanging out at this ATX DAO party, and the idea came to, what if we built MySpace on top of Farcaster? What if we brought MySpace back, right? Not MySpace exactly, but a social network inspired by MySpace. People at the party really liked it. In fact, Brennan.eth, who's an awesome Nouner that's also local to Austin, was like, dude, you have to build this. Did you know that the way that I got into development, he's an awesome full stack developer, by the way, the way he got into development was by customizing MySpace profiles as a teenager, which I think Jesse, myself, a lot of our friends, maybe yourself, Rob, had that same experience and have that same nostalgia. And there's really not like anything quite like MySpace anymore. It's kind of completely changed and gone away. It's still around, but it's totally different. So that was how the idea began. Posted a cast thread the next day that was like half joking on Farcaster around like what a Nounish MySpace Farcaster client could look like. And people really liked the idea. So basically reached out to Jesse, was like, bro, let's get a proposal together. And yeah, the rest is kind of history. I'll hand it over to Jesse to talk about basically like how it evolved from there.
Yeah, so we were talking about like, okay, so there's this old like version of the internet that we kind of want to like harken back to, like a period of time when people were able to be creative and like put their own spin on their presence online. And a lot of folks like got into technology as a result, you know, customizing the MySpace, the Tumblr theme, GeoCities, you know, back in the day. And a lot of that has like kind of faded from the public with these huge centralized systems. And Farcaster is a great opportunity for us to try and like, you know, see if there's a revival out there for that kind of experience. We're not really dependent on focusing people's attention in the same way that other social media platforms are. So we don't need to have this rigid structure to the entire website. So we got to talking about, you know, okay, what kind of creativity can we enable, and what sort of has been opened up in the time since those websites were popular. Now we have, you know, website builders, we have no code tools. There's a lot of like creativity that's been unlocked by new tooling. And the idea for this MySpace Farcaster client started to evolve into, well, what if we build a client that we let people basically build themselves? So it becomes one part social media client and one part like creative website builder tool. And the foundation of what we wanted to build was what we're calling fidgets. These essentially like widgets, the same way that you would have on your phone or on like a tablet, that are these little decentralized apps that other people could build. So you could create your own building blocks. And then you could assemble those onto your profile or your feed or, you know, channels, and go through and theme it and get a lot of customization basically that would also have functionality. So not just, oh, let's put a GIF of a dancing banana on there, but like let's see if we can build in like real applications that are going to be useful to you while you're scrolling your feed. Definitely, like one of the inspirations for that was the frames that Farcaster had recently released, these mini apps that you could run inside of your feed. And we kept seeing folks bookmark them and then dig through their bookmarks for them to try and find that one fidget that had this one frame that had the capabilities that they wanted. And so that was basically what we put together. We said, hey, here's some fidgets, some functionality we want you to be able to use and customize. And a lot of those are going to be Nouns focused, just because Nouns is funding us. But we're going to build them in such a way that like other communities could use them too, right? So you could take this, you know, foundation that Nouns DAO finds useful and find another DAO that, you know, might benefit from the same information feed. So things like the latest auction, the proposals, whether or not you voted on one, being able to vote like right there inside of the feed without needing to jump out to another platform. And really the long-term vision started to take shape as like, what if you could take all of Web3 and, put it into one platform, like build the everything app, but not actually build it, just give people the tools to build it.
No, it's beautiful. It's like encompassing all of the best promises of Web 2 and all of that, of extensibility and user generated content. And then we've got Web 3 promise, and then really putting them together and like actually doing the permissionless extensibility thing. And also the Nounish side to that. I love the concept of using the Nounish funding in order to build it first for nouns, and then it's extensible and permissionless enough in order to just to mod it to make it available for other communities. So it's a great piece to it of delivering on the promise of the Nouns proposal, but making it available to the community as a whole. I mean, that's what open source, that's what Creative Commons, that's what CC0 is literally all for. So that's a beautiful encapsulation of, like, again, all the promises over the last 15 years or so.
I think that really appealed to them too, having something that, was going to serve their needs, but also like it could have this broader impact, which I think Nouns has always been about, is having as broad of an impact as possible.
And it's ambitious. Our proposal is definitely very ambitious because it wasn't just focused on a client just for the Nounish community. But I can't think of like a much better way for Nouns to proliferate the Noggles than if they can fund and have the largest, most successful social network be Nouns branded. So, it's going to be a while before we get there. It's certainly not guaranteed, but that's what we're aiming for. And so pretty awesome to be able to like get that grant. Nounspace wouldn't have happened without even the competition. And then as builders to be able to build with resources from day one, which most startup founders, like, it's a dream come true. Normally you're working for free or you're bootstrapping until you can finally get some funding to actually pay the bills. And that can take a long time. So it's been super refreshing to basically actually have resources on day one to build this out. And yeah, we're 71 days, 72 days, maybe somewhere around there into this 3-month sprint. And so we're basically in the final like 28 days. 18 days. Yeah. into launch. Yeah.
We've been keeping a running timer for our weekly kickoffs.
Nice. No, you got to keep the fire burning, and milestones and deadlines are what makes the world goes around. So that's great. No, but also super exciting about just that concept of the model of funding first. Obviously, you had strategy and concept and vision, and those aligning with something Nounish, with a proposal that was specifically asking or aligned with that proposal. So when the stars align, they align. So that's super exciting. Do you want to talk about any particular updates or milestones that you've come across so far, or where you all are at? Where do you want to kind of take the conversation from here?
I could give an update on where we're at right now. So we've been working with this great team over at General Magic that Willy's worked with before, to get a lot of our design fully fleshed out. And we've been working on kind of the UX recently on like how you do this building, basically. Back at FarCon earlier this year, we had our first prototype of an interactive like grid where you could place these fidgets, resize them, move them around, etc. And we've since built the ability to theme it and do theming across the entire space, and then for individual fidgets. And then we've been expanding our ideas on how we want to approach third-party fidget building. So we're not going to have third-party fidget building just out of the gates, but a big concern for us is security. Obviously, we're building this free-form platform, but we don't want to open a bunch of security vulnerabilities. And our first exploration is going to be around using sandboxed iframes, where you could really serve a fidget from anywhere. So a lot of it will just be served from the Nounspace platform. But third parties could serve it themselves and just have their fidget listed in the fidget like app store or whatever we end up calling it. And then these iframes are then served from their own like custom rolled domain that isolates them from accessing information for any other fidget or for the main page that they're being displayed on. And this architecture also comes along with some interesting implications for authentication for these fidgets. So this is something that's really cool about our platform that's like enabled by this model, which is that each of the fidgets can kind of store their own authentication details on the platform. And we've built an extensible like authenticator module that would encrypt that data so that only the specific service that's providing that fidget would actually be able to use the information to authenticate. So we're not getting access to like a username or a password in any way, and then the user is authorizing the actual like access to that information, and only to the actual fidget that created the authenticator. So you can start to use our platform as a form of OAuth, essentially, for maybe multiple Web3 services, and especially as we start to like integrate smart wallet functionality into the platform. There's a lot of really exciting like Web3 stuff you can do with that, where you can just have this Farcaster profile that then acts as like a passport to get you into everything else, along with the wallet under the hood. And we're really hoping that helps enable like Web2 users to come over and start playing in this space without really needing to be super technically involved, or be like concerning themselves with a lot of that security, which is going to be under the hood.
It's funny when you start to unpack it, it's clearly a much more complex problem than building MySpace back in the day in terms like when you're exposing obviously wallet and multiple authentication methods across multiple services. It's I think R1 and Rabbit are going through something growing pains of like, oh, you've got to authenticate multiple services and then serve those up in a secure enclave in a just a website that's served just for one device. No, so that's really interesting. Just thinking about how to build it as an actual piece of infrastructure so that it can be properly utilized, so that it's not just slapped together and we know what problems come when you start to scale, and that's the point of this whole thing, is to be able to be a platform. So yeah,
as we're entering this final sprint, we're really like starting to leverage that stuff that we've built under the hood, and we're just making building blocks as fast as we can. Yeah, so getting out the music player, text, the various governance and auction fidgets, all of that jazz.
Yeah, I mean, what you
just how many fidgets you build before launch.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
That too is like the authentication platform for Web3, essentially, like you're saying, bringing multiple things. So, I mean, again, back to Web2 days, and like, remember iGoogle, and you could customize your homepage with multiple RSS feeds, and that was an open way to then bring information, and you could customize it and have more advanced than just the RSS. They did have some other widgets that they were working on back then, but I mean, it's harkening back, but bringing me warm feels, because I loved all of the OG days of like delicious bookmarks and the first like user generated bookmarks and all of that like promise of and excitement of is finally coming to Web3, where it's not just DeFi, and that's all very exciting and very, very necessary, but some of the community, some of the building, and also to the point like that GeoCities, HTML with no CSS, just embedded styles, was where I learned to code for the first time. And then when my friends were doing MySpace profiles, like all of that, I was helping them hack all that stuff together. So it's like just it has the nostalgia piece, but has it's brought up to date and modern, plus all of the modern conveniences of Web3. So it's super exciting to hear. Let's talk maybe a little bit broad strokes of what are some of those exciting modules and ideas of like, of course, we can imagine maybe MySpace and their new users that have never touched MySpace and never had those in the music player, and people landing on your themed homepage with your music playing. What are some of those ideas like that, or some of the other deeper ideas that you're getting excited about as well?
Yeah, I'll start by talking about some of the very basic fidgets, and then we'll go towards more complex. So like on the basic end of the spectrum, we have a text fidget, or if you just want to like embed some text and format the text with Markdown and have that on your space, you can do that. We have a gallery fidget, where if you want to embed an image, you can do that. We don't yet have the video fidget, but I think the video fidget would also probably make a lot of sense. We have a concept of like list fidgets, basically. So haven't built these yet, but it's relatively straightforward. But something as simple as like being able to add movies like that you like, or books, or the sports teams that you like, or the communities that you're a part of, or your favorite tokens. Basically, we can have like a number of these different list tokens where people can kind of just show their interests or their lists and have a database of like different options for them to select from really easily. As we start to get a little bit more advanced, you can imagine things like showing the balance of an address, like on the space. So if you're like a community that has a treasury, showing your treasury balance right there. Maybe you're a community that has a token. So imagine being able to like swap into a token directly from a space. I should caveat, we deferred the ability to connect wallets to fidgets from NLP, so that won't be live on day one. But the plan is to be able to connect wallets to any of these fidgets and do so in like a global way, where you can connect your wallet to Nounspace instead of having to like reconnect basically every time to each fidget. And you can have entire applications or iframes basically embedded. So literally like anything is possible. These Nounish governance and auction fidgets, these are a great example of like the interoperability and composability of Web3 that makes this especially magical, where we build one Nounish governance fidget, and now any Nouns fork or community that has a governance contract can just plug in their contract address and the network that it's on, and then boom, have their auctions show up inside the auction fidget without having to build one from scratch. You could even imagine like some Web2 fidgets, so like a Shopify plugin fidget where you can buy from a shop directly on a space, or order a pizza from a space. Anything is possible here. Yeah, similar to that Google example, basically bringing all of these different pieces of functionality in many apps into a space alongside social. So social network, we think, is where it makes sense to bring all this stuff together, because all these users have accounts, all these communities and projects have accounts. Why would we create some other tool where you can basically like customize your home base and have all these different fidgets? Why not have it right next to the social? Bring social into all this functionality and content that currently happens outside of social, and bring all of this content and functionality into social.
Yeah, I can see it supercharging the social experience, where channels right now are customizable only to a certain extent, versus you can bring your whole brand instead of having a whole property that lives Web 2 on a website. It's right there. And that also then kind of leads to the question too, how much will be kind of Web 2? Because this, I see it as Web 2, Web 3 smushed together perfectly on display for web or native client. So how much will be kind of focused Web 2 versus Web 3? For instance, you mentioned the lists. So is it a plug in a token and it calls a service, or, I assume obviously start from scratch and with the basics of just a text list, but then start tying in services, etc. So kind of like the balance between Web 2 and Web 3.
I mean, that's really going to depend on what building blocks people want to use. So we're going to start onboarding our alpha users in July. July 2nd, I believe, is our launch date for that. And we want to be community driven, like from the get-go. So we have a lot of ideas of stuff that we want to build, but I imagine we're going to ask our community, hey, here's the stuff that we think would be cool. Is there other stuff that should be on this list? And like, how would you prioritize this list? Like, what do you want as the next building block for your space? And maybe we'll see a really strong Web3 bent there, where we build a lot more stuff that you're plugging in, like wallet or token or network data. And maybe we'll see some more stuff that's just theming oriented, that they want more customization capabilities. But the real magic here is that because it's this extensible platform, we're really kind of opening our doors to any other business to start building on this platform, and building something that your customers could see every day if they're choosing to like include that in the areas that they're spending their most time on online. Because we really do spend a ton of time on social media, and there's information that we pull up in tabs to look at. But like, wouldn't it be nice if like you could just have something that plugs in every single day for people to take a look at? I mean, I could see like updates thing for like a service for all of the hyper subscriptions to do updates across that, so you can just keep track of them. Tons of stuff. And also live things. Like that's the thing that's like enabled here that you can't really do with frames. Is you can do things that are actually like live and concurrent, because it's a full application. So you could imagine like if there's something that's happening in the world, you've got the ability to pull in like Tavern. So like basically live like spaces where people can go and talk about it, or like a chat on a channel where that's just like a IRC chat, back in the day, people talking about it now.
And that
or
immediacy of being able to edit it for the time frame. So you have a launch event, you're doing things, people go just to that home to see that information, but they know that that's the home to go to. Like a website wouldn't even be as up to date because it's more difficult. There's a process. This is fun, extensible. It plugs in to the services. So it enables a lot of behavior and things that wouldn't necessarily be possible even, currently right now with the clients.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, especially when we're talking about Web3, like launches, right? An issue that comes up a lot is like phishing, essentially. Like people trying to create a website or like a way to access this launch or product that is actually a scam. You connect to it and then it doesn't work, and you get your wallet drained. And that's obviously something like we want to avoid for Web2 users that are coming over for the first time. And having a social network where you can start to like build reputation scores and you can start to build some representation of how like a platform is, instead of like just clicking a link and going to that, you will literally be on the profile for one of these projects and they'll update like a widget on that profile and you'll interact with it right there. So I think that's really powerful in terms of like authenticating the legitimacy of these different projects on the platform.
Yeah, I like that as a whole, just like source of truth. You've been seeing updates from that user. You're familiar with going to their profile or to their channel that's representing that, in a verified or official manner. And then that's where you continue to go instead of clicking on a link that also, it's funny that Warpcast still warns you when you click on an external link. So it's, still
the social
covering
graph is
their
a powerful
back
thing, and as we're getting deeper into building a social network, I'm really learning like the potential that it unlocks. So like great example of like if let's say you're just a Web3 user and you go find some account on social and you like what they have, right? And you're like, you want to buy their token. Okay, well now you have to go find like the correct contract address because there's a bunch of like scam tokens out there pretending to be them, right? So maybe you go to their website and now you got to dig through some new website to like find where have they buried their token, right? That's too hard. Maybe you go to Google and you search it. That's dangerous because PageRank can be gamed with SEO tricks and stuff. And people are always trying to game PageRank. Similarly, anyone can pay to show up in the top of search results, right? So you're just trusting Google, who doesn't do a ton of diligence, clearly, when they let people pay to show up on the sponsored results. So imagine instead going to an account, you see all your friends that are following them, you see how many followers they have, so that gives you an immediate social score and reputation, confidence that it's legit. And you can swap into their token right there. The owners of that space basically put the token right there, and they don't have to build that themselves. Like Trash NFTs, we talked about adding the ability to swap into trash directly to the website. And we haven't done it yet because that takes time to build, right? And we're people who can build. Imagine just the average community or project that doesn't have those coding skills. The ability to just be able to take something that's already built, add it to their space, configure it is super powerful. And one other point I wanted to mention earlier, because I can't believe I didn't talk about it, was I think it helps make everything really clear. It's basically just understanding that everything inside of a space is a fidget. So even the social feed itself is a fidget. And what's cool is that when you take things and put them into fidgets, you can configure them and customize them. So like potentially the feed on the space, maybe you have multiple feeds, or maybe the feed on like the Nouns profile isn't just cast from Nouns, but is cast from all the Nouners, right? Or everyone in the Nouns channel. They can customize that, including even potentially the UI UX of it. So hopefully that helps paint the picture of how really everything is fidgets, and ultimately like anything will be possible.
Total canvas, and even the elements within the canvas are customizable.
Some people are going to be really excited to have this level of customizability, and some people are going to be like, "Oh, I like your space. Export, import." Like so
permissionless, right?
Exactly. Willy's touching on something really important here, like that's deep in the weeds of technically, but fidgets technically have like 3 components under the hood. So there's like a UI layer, like a data representation layer, essentially. There's an algorithm component, and then there's a data provider component. And you can build a fidget that swaps out any of those pieces. So if you put a fidget out there that's like a complete fidget that has like all of those pieces already, someone could build something that conforms to the interfaces between those pieces and swap it in the middle. So that is, for feeds, it's really clear. Okay, like I could swap out the algorithm that's sifting through the data that's being provided to me, or I could swap like the data that's being provided to me and say start mixing, Farcaster with Blue Sky or Mastodon feeds or Lens, but still have the exact same experience from a UI perspective. As long as you can get the interface and all of those those hooks set up properly, then you can mix and match each of those pieces of the layer, of the fidget, and that creates a lot of remixability power for open source development.
It just literally gave me chills because this is back to the original extensible web with XML and separating style from content with HTML and CSS so that you could literally CSS Zen Garden change the CSS and it changes the entire site, but it's the same content. Now we have a data layer, which then, introduces whole services side, which is amazing. So it's just, again, the next step rather than killing all third-party developers on some of the closed networks that we know of. We're getting back to roots, getting back to open and opening it up. And I can't wait until, obviously more developers are building on top of this. That's going to be super exciting. So laying the groundwork now and doing the hard work to build the infrastructure, to build the platform is really dope and obviously important to be using this build time. So congrats so far on, on everything that you've been doing.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a head scratcher. A lot of this is lots of long walks discussing how we might build it and things that we need to consider before we actually start building on top of that infrastructure, so we don't get too far along the road and be like, oh wait.
Yeah. When I think importantly too, you mentioned doing UX and design after you've done all this heavy thinking, you have the vision, then you start thinking about how it needs to be built, but then you need to do a lot of that strategy to sort out what you need before you even get to that design phase. So, congrats to sticking to those guns. That's important.
All in 3 months too. So
yeah.
I'm pretty amazed, in fact, with how we've really been able to not just build a proof of concept, but all this amazing architecture and thought that's gone into the back end. That's pretty amazing and incredible, and the right way to build it, so that after we launch, we're ready to keep shipping fidgets basically and grow from there. And yeah, so I'm really excited with what we've got so far. I'm excited with what we're on track to have by July 2nd. I think it's going to be awesome. It's obviously the MLP, so we had to defer some stuff like mobile, for example, which we've got some mockups for, but we're not going to have it in the App Store on day one anyways. So we figured that would make sense to defer so we can focus on making at least the web experience and the backend really good. And that's a perfect thing for us to follow up with. So stoked with what's been getting built. The engineers have absolutely been crushing it. And not only, I think, are we on track to crush the proposal that we made to Nouns in terms of the deliverables, but we've also just made amazing progress in building a community and launching Nounspace. Tom, that wasn't part of the proposal, but that's been going super well. He's up to 3.4K followers probably now. And he's been the top 10 trending accounts on Farcaster for over a week now. So Tom's just his chart just looks like this. It's going absolutely vertical. That's amazing to see. We have been building a community. We've got Discord, we've been putting out blog posts, and then in a couple of days, we launched the Space Fair launch for our token. We also launched Nogs, the early access NFTs. Those look amazing. We're already pre-selling early access to Nounspace before the product's launched. That's been amazing to see. So yeah, I'm it's only been a little over 2 months, but the team is just in a great rhythm right now. I'm just every day pushing forward, and couldn't be happier with the team that we got and what we're building. Obviously, you can tell we're pretty freaking excited.
Yeah, we're everyone working on this project is absolutely gung ho about it. I did a drive from LA to the Bay Area after FarCon. That's a 9-hour drive with one of our principal engineers, Julian, and we talked the entire 9 hours. Just so excited about what we're building, and such interesting problems to discuss and to try and find solutions that are really going to hopefully build a new fundamental piece of infrastructure that's going to benefit a lot of people.
And I think that's the exciting piece to having maybe a off the cuff idea at a South by party, and then the energy starts to snowball, and then the funding, and then we have to solve real problems. Oh wow, these are big problems, and then okay, we can solve these problems. And then I think that's magic moments where you weren't necessarily expecting it to turn into what it was in that little loose light conversation, and here we are.
It's definitely the cliche startup roller coaster on crack.
Yeah.
Things are
I
going.
mean, we've got big plans. Billy, do you want to talk about space a little bit?
Yes, I'd love to. So that's some alpha. Hopefully, I don't know when this. Do you know when this is going to drop, Rob?
So we have some flexibility overall. We definitely have some things in the queue. The only thing we have locked is on the 27th, Thursday, the 27th of June. So we can pretty much publish it whenever. So, go ahead
We're recording this on June 12th, and on June 14th at 1:11 p.m. UTC, the Space Fair launch begins. You'll be able to deposit staked ETH, and start earning space tokens every block. And then you can actually withdraw your staked ETH anytime 7 days after that. After 7 days after the deposit, you can withdraw instantly. So it's a really interesting new fair launch mechanism that was built by Morpheus. I'm pretty sure you're familiar with Morpheus, Rob. They've also got a lot of community members in Austin, Texas. But they're one of the top, if not the top, projects working on decentralizing AI. And when you're working on something as important as decentralizing AI, the only way, in my opinion, to launch your token is fairly. Similarly, when you're trying to build the future of social, we believe that it should be a fair launch and community owned. So Space is both the governance and the utility token for Nounspace. It's a fair launch. Everyone's getting the same access. There's no early team allocations or early investor VC allocations. June 14th, everyone's going to get the same access to be able to deposit staked ETH. You basically, what you're giving up is the yield that your staked ETH would earn otherwise. So you keep your ETH exposure, which I think is pretty awesome because a lot of us, I imagine, are bullish on ETH and might have some ETH, but you want to also do more with your ETH, right? So you basically are giving up the yield that you would otherwise be earning up on your ETH in exchange for space tokens. And what happens, there's going to be a 90-day period after staking begins before space token is claimable and transferable. So over those 90 days, we're going to be collecting yield. And then on day 90, we will take that yield, we'll take space tokens, and then we will create a liquidity pool so that space will be tradable. People will be able to claim their space at the same time. And we're also launching that day the Nounspace DAO, so a community treasury that will also have space tokens and will be governed by the space token holders.
Nice. Super cool. I love that fair launch concept. That's quite beautiful. So that's really exciting.
How launches should be. And it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Tom's really grateful that he hasn't had to spend a bunch of this 3 months talking to VCs that keep DMing him and wanting to learn about how to get involved. He's like, oh, we'll just come to the fair launch on June 14th. That's all you got to do. And they're like, wait, what? We don't get a special piece? But actually, the VCs have been surprisingly receptive, I think, because a lot of these VCs, interestingly, if you raise a bunch of money as a VC fund, you don't deploy it all immediately. You deploy it over the course of a couple of years. And if you've raised a bunch of capital right now, you don't just have it sitting in stable coins. If you're a Web3 focused investor, you probably have it in ETH, maybe some in Bitcoin, but you probably have a chunk in ETH sitting there doing nothing, waiting to be deployed, waiting to find projects that you think are more compelling than Ethereum. And so it's a pretty awesome opportunity for those investors to still keep their exposure to ETH and then be able to both support a project while also basically earning tokens in an early stage project at the same time.
Yeah, that's a really cool mechanism and cool incentive opportunity there for sure. No, that's cool. I love that.
We're going to have 5 different buckets that Space is distributed across. Capital providers are one of those buckets, but then we also are going to be providing tokens to the users of the platform. So we will have a system for distributing space tokens to people that are on the platform, being active, contributing in ways that make being part of Nounspace better. Developers, so people that are building fidgets, if we want to encourage developers to come along, have fun, play around, remix, etc. So if you're building free fidgets for the platform, you're going to get a portion of the space tokens being distributed. What are our other two? We've got team, and then what's the last one?
The community treasury.
Community, right? The community treasury, right? You just brought that up. That's actually just for the treasury, for the safe that the community governs, so that they can use that for their own initiatives. But we're already doing this huge experiment of let's build this platform that is a community effort. So why not just take the next step and continue that experiment in terms of how we do ownership for the platform? If we're truly trying to build a novel way to, play on the internet and to collaborate and build it together, we should also be doing collaborative ownership of what we've built. That's really what we're aiming to do with the fair launch. Make sure that no one feels we don't want a situation where anyone feels like we couldn't live up to the promise, and they lost money in the process, right? So in this case, like, you are giving up like the opportunity cost of the yield that you could generate, but we're not asking you to just pour money into us and like get it back out.
You can't
exactly. You can't get wrecked. You literally can't in a worse position than you were when you first put money into the project. And for us, that's really important, just to keep the good vibes flowing.
When taking from the learnings from ATX DAO, from past experiences with decentralization and running DAOs and doing all that side and putting it together. So instead of it just being, back of a napkin type of idea, and then was, oh, wait, we can build this. Oh, wait, there's an opportunity. There's a grant going on right now. Let's do a proposal. And then having also the building blocks of what you've done in both of your, past careers and past projects, then bring it all together just makes total sense. It's like, wait, we were just writing these contracts. Oh, wait, we just set up all that, infrastructure for a DAO, but wait, we can make it better, and just keep progressing and iterating and bringing all the good bits forward.
I think we're pretty fortunate between Jesse and I and the rest of the team to have like quite a bit of DAO experience. I think a lot of us are fans of the DAO model. We believe in it. We believe that some of the most successful organizations of the future will be community owned and will be the organizations that have the strongest community. And I think there's kind of a gap right now, like in the Farcaster ecosystem, there's not a lot of community owned Farcaster clients or even clients that have a token, let alone a governance token. All right. And Magic Internet Money is pretty powerful. There's a lot of interesting stuff you can do there to incentivize and reward users and give them control to contribute. So give them the ability to contribute, reward them for contributing, and then give them ownership with those rewards. I think it's a super powerful flywheel that we're tapping into. And so, we're using the latest, greatest tools available to us with this More20 fair launch standard. And I think if anyone's like launching a new project right now and they want it to eventually be decentralized, the More20 with this governance model that we're pioneering is a great option, so that from day one, without a ton of overhead and a ton of time invested in like launching a token and launching some sort of method for people to basically earn or purchase that token, just being able to deploy the More20, it runs for the length of the curve, which is important to mention. There's an 11-year curve where the space tokens will be emitted until we get to the 1.1 billion total. And so, basically, as long as the community and the team are doing a great job and people want to continue supporting Nounspace, then we'll be able to continue earning yield, which goes into the liquidity pool. It's not even going into our pockets or the community's pockets. The yield collected goes into a liquidity pool, which benefits all the token holders equally, proportionally. So it's an awesome model. And it basically enables us to launch in a way where from day one, the community is not dependent on the Nounspace team, or I should say from day 90. So on September 12th, when the token becomes claimable and we launch the DAO, the community treasury is actually going to have control over these buckets, and they have the ability to update these buckets if we didn't get the allocation perfectly right at first. And the team, while the team can, is obviously incentivized to continue contributing and adding value, because as long as we're doing a good job, then we would hope that the community continues to let those tokens be emitted to the team. But if at any point the community wants to go in a different direction, basically, they're no longer dependent on the team, which is super powerful just to have that from day one. At any point, they could turn off our tokens emissions. They could fund another team if they wanted to. But we are incentivized to continue adding value. And we also now have this separate organization or community that has their own treasury and is autonomous and can basically do whatever the heck they want to do to try and grow Nounspace, because they're also incentivized to do that, while we, in parallel, basically do everything we can on our end. So we kind of have the best of both worlds. We have the decentralized community. We do also have like a centralized team that basically reports to the community.
And our client is open source. So if you go to GitHub right now, you can go and take a look at the code that we're building. Nounspace is the client. That is what we are building. But the fundamental like infrastructure layer for these fidgets, we're trying to build into like a primitive that is accessible to other clients. We're calling that like the space protocol. And so if the community really, really hated us, it is totally possible to build a client that has the functionality that we have. Our greatest strength is our community. And so we want to basically build this system that keeps our team accountable, which, a lot of companies would look at that and they'd be like, you're crazy. You're giving up so much control. But I think like in this case, what we're doing is creating some kind of like proof that we're going to follow through on what we're saying we want to do, which is build this platform into something that's community owned and that like is this shared space that benefits everyone, as opposed to something that gets privatized and locked down and goes through some kind of enshittification process, as we've seen with many other platforms on the web.
When it's interesting experiment of actually putting the literal like dev money where your mouth is, and in terms of building something truly open, and doing the experiments also where I feel like there have been these huge chasms between the DeFi space and then Web3 social, and then it's as if also some of the other things that were coming with DeFi like were thrown out with the bathwater in like, let's say, Farcast in decentralized social. So then some people are like, oh, tipping mechanisms and tokens, and people are like, oh yeah, we've been doing this for a super long time, but it's being introduced to Warpcast users for the first time, or Farcast as a whole, like for the first time. But then it's kind of like the best of pieces, hopefully. For instance, even like frames product, or the open frames, and then frames on Farcaster, of like these specific, like, okay, we're going to think about the transaction. Okay, now it's an open protocol that then can be used in XMTP or other spaces and integrated. So, I mean, it's, but a product driven by that, again, like as if Warpcast, the client, was then driven by a community with a treasury that was focused on so it's just all of the things put together in a beautiful little pot, because you have the experience having done them successfully, taking the right elements, the right ingredients, and just the chef's touch that's necessary.
Hey, what if? And then we went and found out.
Yeah. No, it's cool. It's not, and it just doesn't feel as if it's just iterative, one step further than the thing before. It's instead, you took a step back, really thought about, again, what if you could really build this thing from scratch for these purposes, and 2 months later we're here, and then in just under a month we'll be seeing what the launch looks like and everything. So super exciting. Is there anything else you all want to cover? Obviously, space was a big one. No, definitely don't want to miss out on that alpha and everything. Any other things you want to cover in terms of Nounspace right now?
Main thing I want to mention, if we haven't already, and if you haven't already, go mint some Nogs. So Nounspace Tom is wearing a pair. These are our early access NFTs, the Nounspace OGs. They're beautiful. We've got 11,111 unique Nogs. They were created using 11 hand-drawn frames that Benjamin Latsko, a Nouner, hand drew. And then we masked them over 1,011 different unique pieces of artwork, photography. That was all CC0. And they turned out amazing. They look beautiful. And if you mint them for 0.0111 ETH, then you will get the earliest access to customize your space, as well as free premium Nounspace access for life. So definitely recommend minting as soon as you can, so you can get a low Nog ID. Maybe mint a couple if you want to make sure you have some different Nogs to match with all of your outfits. But that's the main thing I want to mention. So fair launch, June 14th, 1:11 p.m. UTC. Be there, be square. And Nogs minting is live right now. And then we're aiming July 2nd to open up access to all the Nogs holders to come customize their space.
Perfect. So let's just segue right into links and where we can find all of the important things about the Nogs presale, space, and the fair launch, and then the rest of the project as well.
I mean, nounspace.com is a good place to go take a look. You can go and buy Nogs right now through there. And then that'll have links to our channel on Farcaster, and the original proposal that we had. And then on our channel on Farcaster, you'll see we've got a couple of links out to information about space, and various posts that we've made before. We have a couple of blog posts out there about what we're building, and if you want more information, go check out the channel. We're on Warpcast. That's where.
And you can go to nounspace.com, nounspace.wtf, or noun.space, whichever you prefer. So I'll get you to the right place.
And then I imagine you all are doing a bunch of media, podcast spaces, etc. right now. So any that you're excited to plug or shout out that we should go check out?
Well, I just did one with Based Builds. That was a lot of fun. We've done a few podcasts over the past week. We're doing a space tomorrow with Morpheus community. And then hopefully I'm going to see if we can come on GM Farcaster on Friday morning, the day of the space launch. But yeah, Jesse, we've been working today, actually. It's been such a busy day, but we've been working on some new mock-ups for a new homepage that basically kind of looks like the app, and basically has all these links, but we can also even potentially have like the podcast kind of linked out in what looks like a fidget, basically, of like lists of the podcasts we've done. So it'll have all the information there. You can mint nogs, you can participate in the Space Fair launch, all from nounspace.com.
Perfect. Oh, that's awesome. It reminds me of alwaysonline.xyz. And then the park has like, it's such an interesting, fun, interactive, old school kind of brutalism, like design from the 90s of like hard icons and like click the mode and the music player pops up, kind of like Pool Suite and all that stuff like too. I just been loving those just throwbacks too. So it's super exciting.
Yeah, as soon as you visit nounspace.com, you'll be able to start listening to music straight from the nav. So and I can't wait to hear what music y'all pick for your spaces and what your space looks like. I can't wait to explore y'all's spaces.
Now, do you guys have custom pages on that page yet showing what your space is going to look like? That might be a fun idea.
I think we'll probably by June
launch.
22nd. That's our target. There's a couple of communities that we'll be bringing on early to their space customized, so that we can highlight them and their users can go and start using it right away on July 2nd when we open the alpha.
Nice. Super deep alpha then for anybody that's looking for a space. Reach out to the team and see if that's a good fit.
I mean, if you've got a community, space for you.
Man, that's a good tagline. Perfect. Nice. Well, thank you both. This was a lot of fun just exploring, what Nounspace is going to be and where it came from. So I can't wait just for a couple days from now, and then a couple weeks from now. So super stoked for y'all.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks for having us on, Rob.
Absolutely.
Thanks, everybody.
Cool. I'm going to hit stop here.